Hey guys, what's going on? It's Rekt Capital and welcome back to the Rekt Capital channel. Welcome back. Thanks so much for joining me in today's video about the Pi Cycle Top Indicator, an indicator that we spoke about mid-April. And this was an indicator at the time that was teasing to us that we might be approaching a cycle top. So I'm going to be sharing my thoughts and detailed analysis whether or not we are in a market cycle top, because the Pi Cycle Top Indicator sure is suggesting that to us. So let's dive right into the video. Let's dive into my thoughts and analysis on this. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future. Let's dive right in. So the Pi Cycle Top Indicator is an interesting one, and we've been talking about this a few months back. What we need to notice here is that at the time we were only at the 60k region, somewhere around this point, right? So since then, a week later, actually a week after that video, we reached the 65k region, which the Pi Cycle Top has suggested to us within a time frame of 3 days that was the top of the market cycle. And you can see here that the orange moving average, the 111-day moving average, actually very this is a crossover, but barely one. You can see how these two moving averages just kind of align with one another, and then the crossover, you have that brief crossover, they align almost perfectly, but you still have that orange line above it, and then we cross back. So that theoretically is the definition of a Pi Cycle Top. And to be perfectly honest and critical towards my own self, is that it was a bit naive of me to think that this crossover wouldn't occur for many months and weeks. And though that was certainly the case, that actual crossover occurred within a time frame of weeks rather than months. Although I was right in the sense that these two moving averages would be going together, not actually crossing for a period of months, and they were actually aligning with one another for a period of a few months. So, it's not very clear cut. Typically, we tend to see much more clear situations. So let's have a look at the previous Pi Cycle Tops in previous cycles. So here's the first one in around 2013. You see that clearly, very clearly, the 111 EMA, or at least the moving average, so it's this one, the moving average, 111 days, you see a clear crossover right over here, and that precedes not the peak, but close to the peak. And then we see the end of that market cycle. That EMA, this orange EMA, that crossover's taking a long time to cross back. It takes from around April to August for that entire crossover to occur. And then we have lower highs consistently since then. But we have to maintain here that lower high precedes a crash, that's true. And then we recover, right? So actually this crossover right over here occurs after the bottom of that 80% crash from the 2013 highs, and then we continue before that orange EMA, or at least MA, it's the normal moving average, crosses over once again for this peak at the end of 2013. So you can see how the orange MA crosses over to time that peak quite nicely, and then crosses back later, many months later, to just confirm further lower highs and then further downsides. So it's an interesting one, because even if we look at the 2017 cycle, we see that the MA, the orange MA, crosses over and then takes many months to cross back over. And that initial crossover really nicely pinpoints the peak of that cycle. But what we're seeing here right now is a totally different situation, because yes, we have that imperceptible cross pretty much, and then you see an almost immediate cross back over. So you tend to see crosses precede cycle tops. Perhaps that indeed, well, we did see that local top happen right over here. But then that crossover occurs within the period of a few weeks rather than a few months. We tend to see a few months elapse until for that crossover and cross back over to occur, and it happened within a few weeks. And in fact, this crossover wasn't even that clear, because really we just saw these two moving averages align pretty much with one another until that cross back over occurred. So in any case, what's really interesting to note here is that now this MA is deviating from this MA, the green one, the moving average of 350 days multiplied by 2. So we're now seeing this deviation in this MA, and that tends to signal bear markets in the past, at least, once we get that cross back over, right? But what we need to mention here is that we're seeing a lot of similarities to the 2013 mid-cycle peak right over here. And so how do these pi cycle top MAs behave? So you saw this crossover to precede that mid-cycle top, and then you get that cross back over to essentially confirm a bear market. But when that bear market, or at least that cross back over, occurred, we were already bottomed on this mid-cycle correction. And in fact, that pi cycle bearish crossover later turned into something that the pi cycle top was trying to achieve. It was trying to achieve that pi cycle top later on. So a cross back above the green moving average preceded the bull market top. So what we could potentially see in this cycle, though it isn't a given, is that we could see essentially this moving average right over here go a bit towards the downside, and if we manage to reverse whatever price point we might reverse from, then this pi cycle, this MA, will try to now chase back and cross back over this green area once again. So that's really interesting. That's really interesting because we've seen that in the past, mid-cycle. So will we see a mid-cycle pi cycle top? And then we're going to see this MA chase Bitcoin going forward once we've bottomed. And of course, the pi cycle top isn't going to show us a great bottom where we bottom on this correction. So the pi cycle top is only quite accurate in preceding those local tops or entire market cycle tops. So quite a good indicator. Many people were quite skeptical about this one, but it looks like this was actually one of the more accurate indicators going forward. So what's quite interesting to say here is that if we're in mid-cycle, then we're probably going to see the pi cycle, the orange MA, start to curl up. And at the moment, we're not curling up. In fact, we're curling down just because the price action of Bitcoin is quite low and we're still trying to find a bottom here. But the pi cycle top, aside from this mid-cycle, the pi cycle top here precedes tops, and then we start to see lower highs and then lower highs and consistent lower highs until we form yet another accumulation range. And the same thing happened here. Pi cycle top and then lower highs, lower highs, lower highs before another accumulation range occurred. So if we aren't mid-cycle, and probabilistically speaking, in terms of all pi cycle tops, number 1 pi cycle top, 2 pi cycle top, 3 and 4 pi cycle top, well, out of 1 in 2, that's pretty much 1 in 2, we see a mid-cycle of the pi cycle tops. So probabilistically, the odds aren't in the favor of this being a mid-cycle. This is only the 4th pi cycle top that we're seeing in history, so the odds aren't favoring that, but they are also suggesting that it's not impossible for this to be a mid-cycle top before continuing to actually precede a market cycle top, the end of the bull market like we saw over here. So this pi cycle top is suggesting to us at the moment that it is a market cycle top, and what we might be seeing going forward is lower highs. The pi cycle top is suggesting to us that we'll be seeing lower highs. And I'm going to talk to you guys about this in a separate video, what these potential lower highs might be meaning through the lens of the Wyckoff schematic, what it might mean through the lens of the Bitcoin logarithmic growth curves, as well as the death cross itself. What might this mean? So stay tuned for that video. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like it if you did. I'll speak to you in the next one. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm Rekt Capital, and I'll speak to you in the next video. Speak to you soon.